Had to leave it.
Did you see the whites of his eyes before you shot?
Not quite, not quite.
Not.
Book is? Read those. Or do I read these?
Yeah.
I, Waldorf Viscount Esther, having been elected to the office of Lord Mayor, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfill the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. I'll sign this. Waldorf Viscount Esther, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King George VI, his heirs and successors, according to law, dated this 10th day of November, 1941. Your Excellency, members of the Council, and fellow citizens, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the great honor which you have conferred upon me. And I want to thank you, Mr. Dunstan, you, Mr. Churchward, you, Mr. Stevens, for the kind, considerate, and undeserved way in which you have proposed, seconded, and supported the resolution which has put me into the chair once again. At the outset of the war, you asked me to be your civic head. I'm more than thrice honored that today you should renew that invitation for a third year in succession. From the very start, Plymouth has paid the price of war in the lives of its gallant men and women. When the courageous went down at the outset of war, many hearts were broken in Plymouth. And so it is, there is hardly ever a naval action that some home in Plymouth doesn't feel the effects of that action. We knew the men of Plymouth were brave. We knew the men of Devon were brave in the past, but we've learned also today that the women are equally brave. We've been accustomed in the past to seeing the men in uniform. Now we're getting equally accustomed to seeing the women in uniform. Sometimes they wear service uniform, and sometimes they belong to those great civilian organizations that are doing so much to contribute to the winning of the war. Bus conductors on trams, the WVS, Red Cross, ARP service. You know, one of the occasions that I look back to with the greatest pride was last winter when up on the Hoe, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent came and inspected our ARP services, and then they marched past. There you had the manhood and the womanhood of Plymouth, the wives, the daughters, the mothers, and the grandmothers. Was to try and break the civilian morale. He'd understand the spirit of this city better and its reaction if he were to come here during a blitz. He'd see our buildings in ashes, our churches, our schools, our homes. But if he looked into our hearts, he'd see no ashes there. He'd find that he'd kindled a fire which was going to burn fiercely and would never be quenched until we destroyed the Nazi menace in the world. Magnificent, the way in which the whole world helped us. Money, clothes, mobile canteens, ambulances were poured into Plymouth. This country, from Land's End to John of Groat's, our neighbors did all they could to help us. So did the Dominions. But from nowhere was help more generously sent than from the United States of America. Normally, ladies and gentlemen, after this ceremony here, it's the custom for the Lord Mayor to give a banquet at one of the leading hotels to the aldermen and councillors. In 39 and 40, we made an exception. We were anxious to avoid anything which might be called display, so there was no lunch. This year I'm altering that. I'm inviting you all, and in the invitation I'm including His Excellency the Ambassador, the Commander-in-Chief, and the others, to come and share with us a meal at a Plymouth communal restaurant. I do so confident that they will not be disappointed by the quality of the food which we provide, and that nobody will be able to charge us with extravagance. Last war, we had many visitors to Plymouth. There was one which was outstanding. I refer to Mr. Walter Page, the then American ambassador. I'll never forget his joy at the warmth of his welcome or our pride at his visit. This year, we're again fortunate, and I welcome you, Mr. Wynant, to Plymouth here today. The ties which bind Plymouth to the United States are very real. Mother Plymouth has many daughters in the United States as she has in the Dominions. There is one well-known daughter in Massachusetts associated with the Pilgrim Fathers. But I believe that there are over 20 cities in the United States alone, quite apart from the Dominions, that have the honor of bearing the same name as we do. Mr. Wynant, this mayor choosing ceremony is a domestic, family affair. But in inviting you to join us, we do so because we look upon you as one who belongs to our family, the family of... We know that you belong to the family of free English-speaking peoples. The Nazis make a spurious claim to racial superiority for a mythical Nordic race. The United States have proved that Saxon and Celt and Latin can be united in one people. That real brothers can have blue eyes and brown eyes and even black eyes. President Roosevelt is of Dutch ancestry. Mayor LaGuardia is of Italian race. Mr. Wendell Willkie is of German extraction. They all, Dutch, Italian, German, unite in one family in the United States of America. That, ladies and gentlemen, is democracy. That is Christianity. That is the brotherhood which is going to free the world from the ambition of Hitler. Well, I thank you, members of the Conservative Party, and of the Liberal Party, and of the Labour Party, for the great honor which you have conferred once again upon my wife and myself. And I thank you, Mr. Wynant, for coming here to Plymouth on an occasion which is so memorable as far as I'm concerned. And I'm proud to invite you to take part in our family gathering and address this very representative gathering of Plymouth people.